And I am live and I am also audible. That is cool. And today is 14th of August 2025, Thursday. And in this video, I am going to talk about my Neovim RC file, everything that I have written in there and the plugins that I use and everything else that I like. And till now, I was the only one using Neovim among my friends, and now there are people commenting, like one or two people commented on my videos that they want to see my Neovim setup. And this is pretty cool that I can talk about it, I can yap about it, and therefore here is the whole thing. Okay, so I am assuming that you know how to at least use Neovim and how to use terminal, and yeah, and what else? You need to know some basic Lua, the Lua language. And if you do not know Lua, you can go to this website, Learn X in 5 minutes, and go there and read about Lua a few bit, and then you can watch this video. And if there is anything that you do not understand, then try to Google it and talk to ChatGPT about those things and try to figure it out yourself. That is very cool. That is like one of the best things that you could do. And yeah, I am just going to demonstrate. Yo, hello, okay. And yep, so I have remapped my NeoVim to N. I just enter N, I can increase the size. And also one more thing, you can see the keys that I'm pressing, which is very cool, right? You can see them. Yep, you can. That is very cool. Okay. And yep, so when I press in N, I just get NeoVim, and you need to see where your config file is. And to do that, you go into the command mode and you write echo lua, no, echo, okay, I might mess this up, std path, standard path for config, right? Yep, so that is cool. So my config file is in slash users slash Jitin Raghav slash dot config slash newim. So I am going to go there. Now I am in my newim file, and now I have opened my netrw in newim. And inside here, since I have my whole config on GitHub, I have a .git directory which keeps track of everything GitHub related, and .git ignore, which ignores some things that I do not want to add to GitHub, and readme.md, which I have added just to be cool, and then a license to make this kind of like official thing. I'm using a GNU license if that is of interest to you. And now this is the main file, init.lua. And inside this, I have three Lua statements. And the first one, this one, require lazy.plugin is requiring one file, like importing a file. And this also require walrus is also requiring a file. And I will explain why this syntax. But the thing is, this require, and then anything after you paste, anything you paste after the require thing will be required, imported into your current Lua program. And then this print welcome. So whenever I enter Neovim, I should see a welcome here, but since it is very small, so it just goes away. And if I were to repeat this a couple of times and then enter Neovim, I do see welcome in there, and welcome is just welcome in German. And okay, one more thing, maybe I should have said this. Inside your nvim config file, the init.lua file is the first file that will run, and everything that you add in your Neovim configuration comes from this file, and whenever you start Neovim, this file runs and then Neovim starts. So Init.lua, if I were to remove these lines and save Neovim and now start Neovim, I will have nothing. I will have bare Neovim, as you can see. Right? EX to go to Explorer, basic init RW, everything is gone. But if I go into my init file and paste everything that I removed, I don't even have numbers on the left, which I can have if I do set nu number lines and set RNU for relative numbers. Now I have relative numbers and stuff, and this is what I want to be automatic when I use Neovim. So now, since I have added the stuff in my init.lua file, I have everything, syntax highlighting and everything that I lost. So this require file. Neovim by default has some directories which it will look into if you require anything. That is, whenever you require a file, Neovim has a set combination, a set of directories that it will look for, that it will look into to find these programs. And if it does, then these files will be included into your Neovim init program. And if they are not found, you will get an error. So if I were to do this thing, remove and remove R from this, since I do not have a file named WALUS, whatever that is pronounced at, I will get an error, file not found. And yep, just file not found. And to fix that, I have to go back and put the R back. And if I were to start now, I do have the thing. File is there. And therefore, and one of those directories in which Neovim looks for the required files is your nvim config file, nvim config folder in which I currently am. And every folder that is in that set of directories from which Neovim requires file, if it has a folder named Lua, then you do not have to say your folder slash Lua and then slash the folder that you're trying to require. Lua the Lua part can be skipped, and everything that is inside Lua is requireable. You can require anything that is inside Lua. And in my new init file, I'm requiring these two things: a directory named walrus, which is supposed to be my name, and this lazy plugin.lua. And I will explain what lazy is. Lazy is a plugin manager, and walrus is a directory. And you can name your directory anything you want. And inside this walrus directory, I have a few files, which one is for remaps, one is for my options as in the line numbers that I see on the left, stuff like that, and remap for space PV. That is a remap. If I do not have that remap, I would have to go EX, the EX command, that is the Explorer command. But I do not have to do that because I have added leader PV, leader, which is space PV as the execute command. So I do not have to enter space the command EX command to get back to my netrw to explore files. And yep, so here I was in my init file requiring two things. That is a lot of stuff down there. Require Lua, require Walrus, and require lazy plugin. And I have lazy plugin before and Walrus later because there are some things which are inside the lazy plugin which are required in Walrus. Therefore, I am requiring lazy plugin before and only then I am requiring Walrus. Too much and my bad. Shit. CRNU, immature. Shit. And it's okay. Then we go inside the Lua folder and shit. Inside Lua folder, I am first requiring this lazy file. And what is this file doing? This file, in this part, it is checking if the lazy plugin is like installed or not. And how is it doing that? Here on the first line, this is getting the path where the lazy file is supposed to be installed. And after getting this lazy path, if not this thing, if not lazy path installed, this thing checks that. If not, then this whole thing goes to GitHub and downloads the lazy plugin and git clones it and installs the lazy plugin wherever it is supposed to be installed. And this line I do not understand, but this is supposed to be here. And then this thing, map leader, this thing maps a space as my leader. And what does that mean? That means that all of the remaps that I have will start only after I have pressed whatever my leader is. And in my case, and in most of the case, general case, people set the space as their leader. So whenever I want to execute some remap that I have established, I have to first press the leader, which is space, which I have specified here as a space, and then press the remap, whatever the remap is. And then in this part, at this point in the file, I know that lazy is installed and I also have a leader. Then I require lazy, and lazy will be required because lazy is inside one of those directories which are a part of directories in which Neovim searches. So after I require lazy, inside lazy, I am setting up my setup, and in that spec is a directory. Inside spec, I have to provide a dictionary. In Lua, you only have one single data type that is called a table. So this thing that you see is not a dictionary, it is a table. So here I have to provide a table of all the data related to my plugins. But since I do not like to provide all of my plugins inside here in a single file, I have a different directory in which I am exporting all of my plugin data related to the plugins that I want to install. And yes, and I'm importing that here. So that will be passed on to spec, which will go through all the data and install all the plugins and configure them as I have specified. And here we have install, which is like the install screen, which is this thing. What color scheme this thing should have? It should be Tokionite, and then this checker checks if whenever I am restarting Neovim, it checks if there are some plugins who are specified in the spec field but have not been installed. And if there are such plugins, then Lazy will install them. So that is cool. That was the Lazy thing. Lazy is a plugin manager. It installs plugins. And I think now I should go on to the Walrus folder. In this, I have three files and one folder, one directory for my competitive programming related stuff, which I will get into in a moment. But here I have the init file, and whenever, like in my main file, I am importing Walrus, this Walrus directory. And inside, if whatever I am importing, if that is name of a file, then that file will be imported. Like I was importing lazy plugin, so which is a file. So lazy plugin file is imported, but if it is a directory, then inside that directory Lua will see is there a init.lua file, and if there is, then that init.lua file will be imported. So this is the first file that will be imported here. And is my stream running? Yep, seems to be fine. 15 minutes. Wait a minute, let me check a few things. And yep, seems to be fine. Yep, and my screen is also visible. That is good. So inside here, inside the walrus file, walrus init file, I am importing other things. Uh, by importing, I mean require. I'm requiring other things. And what are those other things? Go inside the walrus folder, and this dot is equivalent to the slash that we use in normal cases. Like this is how you specify a path in normal cases, but in Lua, you specify the path with a dot. So go to the walrus directory and import options.lua and import from the walrus directory remaps.lua. And also inside the walrus directory, there is a directory called cp, and inside cp, there is a file called boilerplate.lua. So this init file is just requiring other things, but the main config file are these two, and I have two custom config files. One is for options and one is for remaps. Let's go to options. In options, these options will be there whenever I run my Neovim, and that is the point for a config file, so that whenever I start my Neovim, I do not have to enable or disable or configure the whole thing manually every time that I start Neovim. It can just start on itself. Everything should be configured when I start Neovim, and that Neovim knows after seeing my file. And what are these things? These are just options, right? This one is for numbers that you see on the left, and the second one is for relative numbers. And I can set them like this. So the numbers are gone and everything is gone. But there are two ways to set options in Neovim. Either I can go to the command line and do set nu to see numbers, right? Now I am seeing numbers, but I like to see relative numbers. So I will do set RNU relative numbers. And now I see relative numbers so that I can jump from line to line. And in Neovim, there are two ways you can set up options, either by going to the command line and doing set some option name and enter, or you can write them here in Lua. And in Lua, you get this thing, vim. And what is this vim thing? Vim is a variable that you get in Lua, which is an API created by the Neovim creators, through which you can access all the configuration for your Vim. And that is what I'm doing. And I shouldn't say and this much. Cool. So these are the things that I want. Number and relative number. Number is for the numbers on the left, relative numbers for getting a relative numbers. And I am assuming that you guys know these things, and if you do not, you should do some research on this. And then clipboard, this syncs the paste command and my operating system's clipboard. What this means is, if I were to copy something in my operating system from some other place and then paste it here, I see the thing here, which is cool. And that is enabled by this thing. And clipboard, we are here setting the clipboard equal to unnamed plus, and due to some weird reason, the clipboard in which everything goes that I copy and normally in my operating system goes to a uh, goes to the buffer named unnamed plus. Due to some reason, that is the thing. This inc command is whenever I am doing something like substitute substitute for OPT or stuff like that, then there is this window at the bottom which I see, which shows me a preview of what I will see. when the substitute is done. What? And if this were not equal to split, I would not see that. I would just see here. And what is the benefit? Because the benefit is that in this case, everything that I want to change is right here in one block. So this additional window is not helping that much. But if they were in a like uh, the term that I'm searching for in this case is OPT, if that term was at different places, let's say now I have hello at three different locations. And if now I were to do search for it, I would see all of those three appearances right here in the split window, which is cool. So that is what that thing does. This split thing does. Cursor line is the cursor is the place where my cursor is. I should see a line like this whole row is highlighted where my cursor is. So that is for that. And all of these things are just other options. And if you want to explore all of these options, there is this command options, which is not a command, options command, which you can type and it will show you everything that you can change in Neovim. You can just search for something like number and see the thing that you want to see, and let's say this thing you want to turn off numbers. You can see the command that it takes to set and unset numbers, and right, if you go there and press enter, it actually changes the configuration. You can just go there and toy around, play around. And these things I do not understand what they are for. These I do not understand what they are for. But this thing I do understand. This I wrote just a few days ago from Reddit. And what this does is whenever I have an error, generally, let me actually show you. Now I have an error on this line. And this character 7 is now colored in the like whatever it is supposed to colored in, supposed to be colored in. And okay, I'm doing a very good job at explaining all of this. So what this command does is accesses the Neovim diagnostic stuff, and in there it is accessing the signs. And what this is, the signs is used to specify what I see on the left hand side on the line on which I have an error. And I am saying that whenever I have an error or a warning or a hint or some information, do not display anything. Do not display anything, right? Do not display any text, but the number highlight for that line. If I have an error, warning or hint info or hint or info, display this thing. And this thing on the right is the name of a color, which has been specified inside Neovim itself. So whenever I like, if I were to change all of these things, right, make them same, and vi paste, and source. Now, if I were to make a simple mistake like this, I see error, and that is cool. See, this thing changes color, and I let me show you what normally happens if I do not have this thing open. And to do that, I can just remove this, exit new vim, start new vim, I will go to the same folder, same file that I was in, the options file. And now if I do something erroneous, then this is the normal behavior. Normally there is a left column that appears and it says that there is some error, and W means warning. There is some warning. And if there is some error, I would see E, capital E in red color, which indicates that there has been an error on this line. And I do not like this. This is very bad. So I changed that to this. And now if I do any bad thing, instead of seeing E in capital, I see 5 has turned into red, which is very cool. And that was the options thing. I also have few remaps, and inside my remaps, I have a remap for the ex command. The ex command takes me back to netrw where all of my files are and I can explore my files. Then there is this command, and the way to set up a remap is this: vim to access the vim API, keymap, you can call it keymap or remap, keymap, and set this remap in normal mode. And what are the key combinations that I have to press? The key combinations that I have to press are leader PV, and leader is, in my case, the space key, which I specified right here. Gmap leader space. And how is this specifying working? Vim dot g, that is in the vim, in vim, in the global context, set remap equal to space in the global context, so that no matter in which buffer or window I am currently at, my leader would be equal to a space. And in my remap, that is what is happening. In normal mode, whenever I press leader and PV, you can do anything, whatever you like here, and put any characters that you want to press. Leader PV, whenever I press this key combination, execute this command. What is this? This is vim command to specify that whatever comes next is a vim command, and what is that command in this case is ex for the explorer command. And I have a few more remaps. Control D takes me down half a page, and then ZZ, what that does. Okay, this is the remap. This is the key combination that I will press to execute this thing. And what this does is CD takes me down half a page, and then ZZ recenters my screen. For example, if I'm here, then my cursor, the current line I am at, is not at the center, and I want to center it. You just look at this place, ZZ. Now I am at the center. So whenever I do Control D to go down half a page, my screen will automatically be centered. Let me do Control D, it is centered. Control up, it is centered. It cannot be centered because there are no lines which can take me down to the center. So it cannot be centered when I am at the top. And the same thing for going up and going down. And no remap equals true. What this does is whenever I press this remap, this thing will be executed. And since this thing will be executed, this remap will be called. And since this remap has been called, this thing will be executed. And since this is executed, this will be executed. So this is a recursive behavior, and I do not want that to happen. So no remap. No remap. What no remap does is only execute this thing one time, and if this thing has a remap to some other thing, do not call that remap. Use this natively, whatever this means natively, and that is what happens. And silent equals true means that whenever I press this thing, I will not get diagnostics below my screen. For example, this thing right now, I am seeing some stuff and I do not want to see them. So I can put silent equal to 0. And this is description. That is, if I were to if I were to see whatever remaps I have, I would see at Control D this description for my remap. And yeah, that is that for those two remaps. And now these remaps for my buffer. If leader BL lists all the buffer. Right now I have two buffers open. One is for this thing, one is for this. And a buffer only means that I have these two files opened somewhere in my RAM right now in my memory and I can go to them. And this thing dot bn leader bn takes me to the next buffer and bp takes me to the previous buffer. Now if I were to press space bn, I am in the next buffer, space bn, I am in the next buffer. I'm back at the first buffer because there are only two buffers right now. And whenever I press these commands will be executed. These things. Command ls, command buffer next, command buffer previous. And if I do not want to do that, I can go to command line and do ls myself and see a list of buffers, but I do not want to do that. I just want to press space bl and see a list of my buffers, which is cool. And here is a description, which I will see here. I have already pressed space B and now I am seeing that if I press N, I will go to the next buffer, which is this thing right here. And if I press P, I will go to the next previous buffer, which is taken from here. And if I press L, I will list the buffers, So that is the thing which is solved or like used for the description column. And now this thing, leader, control V, leader, G, K, G, G, and all of these are just like J, K, H, L for navigation in Neovim. And G, in my head, I am thinking about go J, J is down, go K, K is up, go H, H is left, and go L, L is right. That is Neovim, L is right. And what these remaps do, they execute these commands, Control W, J. And what is Control W? Control W J is a native remap which allows me to switch between windows. And what this means is right now I have a window open on the left and I am right now in that window and I want to go to the right in the window that I'm writing my code in. So I do space go L space GL go left and I can go back there and close that. This remap is for that. And I also have given descriptions for these. Activates the window below, activates the window right, activates the window on left, activates the window on right. And leader FU to full screen the top window and F down full screen the down window. These are just remaps which make sense to me in my head when I'm thinking about them. And you can make your own remaps, which is the main thing in Neovim, which is like the power of Neovim. And if there is some specific question you want to ask, I would be very delighted and I will do my best to explain things. Yeah, to explain things, I will do my best. I will try to do my best. And here, this is not an actual remap that I use, but this is just something I do for play. I was testing some new things. And what this does is it is setting a remap in normal mode I have to press leader pp, which makes sense to me in some way. And whenever I press leader pp, this function, this Lua function will be executed. And to to write a function in Lua, you do this function something, then the body, and then the end of the function. And here comes function name. And inside you write the function logic as in any language. And then inside this function, I am creating a variable called lines. And what is this variable getting? This variable goes is calling a native Lua function. And what is this Lua function? Since I said a while ago that Lua only has a single data structure, and that is called a table. And this function is on that data structure table, and it takes in a couple of tables and concatenates them. And what here I have provided two tables. First is this much, and the second is this much. And the second is just a new line. But before that, I have this thing. Vim API, I'm calling the Vim API, nvim buff get lines to get the lines in the current buffer. And from start, this tells this nvim get buff get lines function, I want to get the whole file and get the whole file, and after that write a new line character at the end of the file, the lines variable. And then here I have another thing, nsid. This is another variable that I have created, and to create this is a namespace, right? My highlight namespace, and here new buff highlight to yep, okay. So I can put this thing here, which is good. So inside this function, I'm doing two things. First, I'm getting the lines for the current file that I'm in, and then I'm vim dot printing them lines. And I am using vim dot print function because I want to print those lines in the Neovim folder right now here below. So if I press space pp, everything is printed here. The whole file is printed here. And so this is one of the things that this function is doing. And the other thing is this local NSID namespace. And what this does is I have created a namespace inside which I want some things to happen. And how am I creating a namespace? I can just create any namespace that I like. And here to create a new namespace is there to just separate your stuff so that whatever voodoo thing I'm trying to do with my current file, that does not flow over to any other files that might be important. So inside this namespace, this is just to create a namespace where I can play, and it does not affect any other files that I'm at. So in this namespace, call the Neovim API and call the Neovim create namespace, and this namespace's name is my highlight namespace, because I can name this anything I want, does not matter, but I call this my highlight namespace. NS means namespace, because I am in this testing the highlight functionality provided by Vim. And then what am I doing? I'm doing vim.api nvim buff add highlight. What this does is it calls the Neovim API as it says, and inside the Neovim API I am calling a function which is used to highlight the current buffer that I'm in. So Neovim buff add highlight, add some highlighting to the current buffer. And what this does is this 0 means something, and then this NSID do this thing in the namespace which is provided here, NS namespace ID. And I could just change the NSID name to anything, and it just has to be same. Like, does not matter what the actual thing is, I just have to provide a namespace. And I'm saying the character starting from the fifth line, and on the fifth line, go to the zeroth character. From the zeroth character, go to the 10th character and highlight all of this thing into this color. And what is this color? I can specify colors for color IDs using strings, the same way that you use enumerators. So this string specify means a specific color, and this string color is this green color that you are seeing everywhere that I am using a string. Like right here, I'm using a string, and right here, I'm using a string. So this is the color that you are seeing everywhere that I'm using a string. And now let me exit. Remaps and okay. So in this function, whenever I call leader pp, if I were to express leader pp, first this thing will happen. All the lines that are in the current file will be printed in the Neovim buffer, which like not in the Neovim buffer, but in the command line below here, which does not help. It is just a test thing which I wanted to see if I could do or not. And then this thing is a new Vim API to highlight some specific lines. And in this case, fifth line from the zeroth character till the 10th character will be highlighted to the color which is used to represent a string. So, which you can see if I go to the fifth line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I can split this. If I go to the fifth line and I go to the 10th character, till here, I think is the 10th character. So when I press space PP, all of this should be highlighted to the color which is used to represent a line, and which is used to represent a string. So space PP, I see the whole text, and the one that is below is highlighted due to some reason. I guess it is zero indexed, that is why. So if I do change this to 0 and source this, see the line at the 0th point is now highlighted. So this is 0 indexed, which is cool. And yeah, so this is just a test thing. I do not actually use this remap. And then here are some extra remaps. IT. Okay, and I would like to explain this IT thing, inspect tree, which is this thing on the right. It is an abstract syntax tree which is used for highlighting stuff. And this li is for the command lsp info, which shows me information for my current running LSP. LSP is language server protocol, and I would love to get into these two things, into tree sitters and LSP. And okay, I will explain these two things at the end of the stream. Before that, let me explain everything else in the options, every other options. And I showed you that you could do this options command to get a list of all the options that are available. I have remapped that to space OPT, and this is what happens when I press space OPT. And this remap leader RC is to CD myself into my init file. And yeah, these are just normal remaps. Is there something interesting that I would like to show? Nope. Space E is if I have an error, let's say like this, I have an error. If I press space E, I see the error in a floating window. That is space B for, and space CA is for code actions. Whenever there is some suggestion given to me by the LSP to fix the bug that I'm seeing right now, to fix the error which I'm seeing right now, if there is some auto suggested correction, then I can just press space CA to fix that. And these are just normal corrections like uh, semicolon or small stuff like that. And then or include, if I'm using a function but I have not actually included the include file, that those things like that are suggested by the LSP, small things. And then escape, yes. Since let's say I have searched for something, let's say Vim, and then it is still highlighted, even though I am not searching currently. And to remove this thing, normally you would have to do execute this command no hl search, and then those highlights go away. But I do not want to do this. I just press escape and the highlight goes away. So Vim and press escape, highlight goes away. And I do not technically press escape because to press escape I have to go this, which is very far away. I have remapped my caps lock key to act as my control key. So whenever I'm pressing caps lock, it is actually pressing the control key, and control plus this character, which you can see right here, this character, control plus this character acts as escape in Neovim in general. In general, this thing is a replacement for escape character. And space SA, this is for competitive programming. And what this does, if I am in a file, this thing yank the whole file. Yank means copy in Neovim terms. So this thing copies the whole file. So I can copy and I can go and I can paste everything into the solution part in code forces. Why don't you use Linux if you are heavy on Neovim? I do not have, I wouldn't be able to use Linux because I have Mac. Mac does not run Linux. What is Neovim? Neovim is my editor that I'm using right now. Just use VS Code. No, 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 no. No. Whenever I see someone who whenever I see someone using VS Code in person, I do not say nice things to them. So what is this channel about? This channel is to show that you can do amazing things in programming. No matter how stupid you think you are, you fudge. You are not supposed to be here. You should not be watching this stream. You, specifically you, with a yellow profile picture. Okay, let me get back to this. Here I have leader SA, which in my head means select all. Select all. What this does is it calls a bunch of these remaps. And this is GG, means takes me to the top of the file. So after I press this thing, space GG, I go to the top of the file, and capital V selects the whole line, and then capital G takes me to the end of the line, and yank then copies, yanks the whole selected thing from the start of the file to the end, selects everything. And since now I was at the bottom of the file, I want to go wherever I was when I started my selection. Therefore, Control O takes me to the last place that my cursor was at. Like here, if I'm here and I press Control G to go at the bottom, and then I press Control O, I will be back where I was. So that is cool. Now, options done, remaps done, and now CP, competitive programming. In this, I have a few boilerplate codes. This is my boilerplate for competitive programming. This is the bare thing. Whenever I go to a file in which I'm writing some solutions to some code forces contest or code forces problem, this is the thing that I start with. And I can change anything here. And this is what I will get when I press a specific remap which has been defined in boilerplate file. And this is my boilerplate for lead code, which I do from time to time. And then this is boilerplate to implement sieve algorithm and SPF algorithm to find prime numbers in a given range. And yeah, that is just that. So inside this boilerplate, what I am, okay, ignore this line for now because this thing is just going to the walrus folder. Inside the walrus folder, see the CP folder or directory, I should not say folder. In the CP directory, there is a file called snippets. They require that file, and require this means import. So, and here is the snippets file, which is being required into this. And what is the point of requiring? So that the code in that file will run. And here I have two boilerplates, remaps. This line is creating path. Hmm. This is a variable. This is path to my CP boilerplate. That is why I'm calling it path CP. And what this does is, what this takes is, it gets the value which I get when I call vim function expand. This is a vim function. This is not a Lua function. This is a function that I get due to the vim API, which I get with Lua, with Neovim. And what this does is it opens this whole path. This is the path from my home directory to the boilerplate that I want. And then I'm using io.open, which is Lua syntax, Lua syntax, Lua syntax to open a file. And in there, I'm providing the path to my file, and I want to open it in read mode. And then boilerplate CP. This is just a variable which is will store all the contents in this file. I'm initializing this to hello world. I can do anything I want. And then I'm checking if the file that I opened is not equal to nil. This thing means not equal to. This tilde, I think it is called tilde. Tilde equal to means if current file is not nil, that is when I opened this thing, it didn't return nil, it actually returned something. Then put boilerplate equal to the file that I opened, read that file and read everything, all of it. Star A means all of it, read everything, and then close the file, and then end this if statement. This end is for this if, and this is how you write a if statement in Lua. If condition, then and then end, and inside comes your code. And here, when I have the contents of my boilerplate, I'm setting a remap, key map or remap. You can call it whatever you want. In normal mode, whenever I press leader BLP boilerplate, this function will run. And what is this function? This function calls the Neovim API, and using that API, I am doing Neovim buffer set lines. What this does is the current buffer that I am in, starting from the top left corner of the file that I'm at, put this thing. And why didn't I just give in BLP? And why am I calling this function? This function is called so that since I have a lot of lines, okay, whenever I pass this function that I am calling Neovim buffer set lines, this function does not require a string. This function wants me to give it a table, which is the only data structure in Lua, which should be like this: line 1, and it should be terminated by new line. Line 2, new line. This is what Lua wants me to give, but I do not have it. So I am calling this Neovim split function and split all of these lines on the new line character. So and this function will return a table of all of those lines, and which will be given to buff set lines function, and it will set all the lines. If I were to open a new file by percent my file.cpp to create a new file called my file.cpp, and inside here if I were to press space blp, I get the whole thing, which is cool. And since I have not saved this file, I cannot just quit. And to quit and not save my file, I have to do q and exclamation mark and go back to cp, and that was the first boilerplate, and this is the second boilerplate. This does the same thing for the lead code boilerplate, and to print this I have to do plc, which in my head translates to print lead code. This is the snippets.lua file. This thing does the same thing, gets the contents of the file in which I have defined the C function, and this one does not use a remap. This function uh, is creating a new command so that whenever I enter sieve command, all of the things that are in the snippet file will be printed at the current position of the cursor, which is done by this nvim put function, put all the things at the current position of the cursor. So if I do sieve command, I get the whole thing starting from the place of my cursor, and I am getting this error because this code is in C++ and I am currently in a Lua file. And as you can see, Lua ls is running right now, Lua lsp. So that was this whole thing, Walrus, and inside here I have my plugins. And how does Neovim know that I have my plugins in this plugins directory? From here, I am telling lazy to import everything that is inside the plugins directory here, and these are all the plugins that I am using, which is cool. How you integrate tmux and Neovim for input and output. How you integrate tmux and Neovim for input for, like, when I copy something like this, and then I can just go here and paste like this. That is an option that you can change this thing. Vim option clipboard sync clipboard with unnamed plus, and I don't know why this thing is called unnamed plus this, but this is what it is called. And now to plugins. These are the plugins that I am using right now. This one is for competitive programming, assistant in UVM. This sends a request to whatever problem I'm trying to solve to the Codeforces API and gets the test cases which I can run locally just by pressing a remap which I have defined, which is leader CPP. So space CPP opens this assistant Neovim window, in where on the left I see test case number 1, test case number 2, and on the right I see the test case things which I will get, and below what are the expected answers and what is the output of my folder of my program. And yeah, this is just the configuration for this. And what I would like to show is this thing. There is supposed to be Python here, but I removed Python, so now I only get support for C++, which is cool. And do this thing for the files with an extension of CPP. No, that does not matter. Compile. Since this assistant plugin will take everything that is in my current program and compile it, the thing that I want it to do is call the clang plus plus function, and these are the arguments that will be called with this function. First, enter the name of the file which I am currently at with the extension. With the extension means uh, like myfile.cpp. myfile.cpp. And with extension means the first argument would be this thing, myfile.cpp, and then I will see -o and then file name without extension, which means my file. What this does is it will call the clang ++ command on this file, myfile.cpp, and convert it into a file, compile it, and the name of that output binary would be my file. And there are some other flags that I'm using, which is -i, capital I. Capital I means include all of these things. And what are these things? I am or anyone is writing code in competitive programming, they do this: include bits std c++.h. This is something that they include, and this this header file has declarations for all of the libraries that a competitive programmer might use. But this thing does not come natively. So I have this header file stored somewhere, and I want my compiler to know where it is, which I am doing by calling this I function, this I include thing. And what this will do is go to this location, which has been provided here, and include whatever there is. And what it has is this thing, this header file, which I need to compile my competitive programming code. And the last flag that I'm using is the standard of C++, which is 20. So that is cool. And that is the whole thing. Not the whole thing, but I don't know what these other things mean. These are just for the UI, whether I want the border to be double. And see, let me show you something in real time. If I change this to this, and if I source this, what source does is whichever current file I am at, add that to the configuration of Neovim. So now this is included, and this has not changed. cd lua cd plugins and n assistant neural. See, now I have an and here instead of the angle bracket that I had earlier. And if I were to change this back to an angle bracket, quit and restart, now it is an angle bracket. That is cool. I have so much power in this thing. And this thing, I don't know why I added this, and I don't even know what this thing does. Dressing, I don't know what this does. This is, I guess, to make the pop-up windows more beautiful. We can check actually. Delete this whole thing. Start new one and call some pop-up window. I can press the whole thing, enter the whole thing here. No, the pop-up window is still beautiful, so that is not what that thing does. So yeah, this plugin must do something. I guess I will remove it when I'm testing. Yeah, I will remove this thing. And Harpoon, this is a plugin by the Primeagen. The Primeagen is a very nice guy. And what this allows me to do is you can okay, I will not go into the details. I will just tell you what this is supposed to do, and I will not tell you how it does it. That should be done by research, I guess. And if you have any questions, you can just ask them in the comments. So what this plugin does is it allows me to go through files very quickly, like this. I can switch between files very quickly, very fast, very fast. Now I have added 3 files in the file. Now I have 3 files among which I can switch very quickly, very fast. And these are the files. And this is done by the Harpoon plugin. It is cool, written by Neovim. Indent blank line. Whenever I have a blank line, it will be indented. This is for indentation, this plugin. Then LSP Saga. I forgot what this one is supposed to do. I don't think this one does anything. I mean, yes, this plugin does do something, but for LSP configuration, I have other plugins. So moving on to the next one, Lua line. Lua line makes this thing beautiful. Like right now, it is beautiful. And if I were to go delete this whole thing, save, and then open something, then now this thing at the bottom is not very beautiful. So I can go back here, paste this, and now start something. Now it is beautiful again. That is cool. And auto pairs, this is for this thing. If I type an opening bracket, I will get a closing bracket. Simple. And nvim complete, this is for auto suggestions, and this is written by some Indian guy named Harshit. And yep, he has written quite a few things, and this is at this point the standard in Neovim. Everyone uses these things. Neovim complete, that is cool. And then we have nvim LSP, and what this does is I will get into when I am getting into how LSPs work and what they are. So for the time being, this is a plugin which is required by a lot of other plugins. I guess Telescope uses this. Yep. Telescope also uses this, and a lot of other plugins need this. So I have added this plugin here explicitly. And what this telescope is written by a guy named Tej. And using this, I have amazing powers like this. I can search for anything that I want, telescope, and I get very amazing search. That is one of the things that is provided by this. And I can do ff to look for the files in the current directory, space ff, and space fg for live grep inside those files. Fg, if I were to write return, I'm seeing all the files which have this return keyword inside them, all of those files in the current directory. And leader is for help. I can search for help for some stuff like inc command. Yeah, anything to search in help. So telescope is amazing. Tokenite is a color scheme. Tokenite is just a color scheme. And tree sitter objects. I will get into these two things. So I have said that I will get into two things in a while, LSP and tree sitter, because these two things are amazing, like very amazing. Without tree sitter, we won't have highlighting, which is very important. We would have basic highlighting that is provided by Vim. And without LSP, let me show you what we won't have without LSP. If I do not have an LSP, I won't get this thing. Unexpected symbol, this, or should use equal to for equal. I won't get any of these things without an LSP. And what is this? Undo tree. This plugin, this undo tree plugin, this is amazing. If I just press leader U, leader U, I get the history of everything that I have changed in this file from its original inception. So this says that 115 days ago, when I wrote this thing for the first time, my file looked like this. And then it looked like this, then it looked like this. I have every change that I have made in this file. And then 22 seconds ago, I changed that thing that I removed to show you an error. And then it started to look like this. And if I press leader U again, then it is gone. That is very cool. And this which key? This which key plugin is written by Folk, and this guy has written lazy. He has written Tokyo Night plugin, which I'm using, and also this which key plugin. And I think he has also written oil.neovim. No, oil is someone else. But yeah, Folk is an amazing person. He writes a lot of things which are useful and people use. And what this does is whenever I am pressing some key maps like space, P, and V, everything like the descriptions which I have written for my plugins, I see them here. So that is cool. Normally you do not get that. And I believe if I were to change this thing, if I were to change this thing and now enter newim, delete. Okay, I haven't changed it. Now if I were to enter newim, I'm not getting those auto suggestions. See, I'm not getting any of those. So I can do this, and now I am getting those suggestions at the bottom of the screen. Those were my plugins. So this thing is done, this whole thing, and now on to LSPs and tree sitters, which is one of the best things. LSPs and tree sitters. Okay, I guess I should get into the theory first. What Neovim is it is just a program which you use to manipulate lines that you have written in your file, which is equivalent to some file.txt, right? And what Neovim does is first, it gives you ability to jump between lines and make your edits blazingly fast. And also you can jump between files and everything. But when you are writing code in the modern age, you see stuff like this missed symbol. And the very fact that this thing, this file is just a simple text file. It does not say that this these three characters which say VIM should be in white color, or that this G should be in green color, or that this map leader should be in green color, or this required should be in this cyan kind of color. Nothing is there in the file. So how does Neovim know to put these things with these colors? And that is done by tree sitter, this thing on the right. And what is a tree sitter? Tree sitter, when Neovim opens, and this all of these things are happening in real time. So when you open Neovim for a file, let's say for a C++ file, or let's not say C++, let's say when you open Neovim for a Rust file, .rs, these lines of codes that are in this Rust file are supposed to have some syntax that is defined by Rust, and you would like your file to be in all of these colors. So whenever you open a file like this, what Neovim does, or more specifically the plugin, this tree sitter plugin which I have installed, what this does is it takes the content of this file, everything that is written in this file, all the bare text, bare raw text, and gives all of this text into a program called tree-sitter. And this tree-sitter program is maybe written by people who have written the Rust language, or some enthusiast who saw the Rust language and thought that they would like to create a tree-sitter for it. And you can actually go see tree-sitter. So there is this guy, this repository called tree sitters, which has tree sitters for stuff. And this program is a tree sitter which takes in a Rust file, and after taking this raw text, this program also knows how the Rust programming language is supposed to be written. And after taking this, this program returns a thing called AS tree, AST, abstract syntax tree. And what is this? This abstract syntax tree is a meaningful representation of your whole code. And what does that mean? For example, in Rust, you have a function called fn main, and this something like this, something like this. And in here, you have, or maybe I should use an actual text in Rust. Let's say you have fn, should this, I should use a better font. Yeah, this one is fine. Fn, and I hope that this is valid Rust code. Fn and print line hello world semicolon and this. So I think this is valid Rust code. And so this thing, this tree sitter takes in some Rust lines like this, and it converts all of this bare text into an abstract syntax tree, which is a data structure, a tree data structure, which looks like this. Abstract syntax tree, which is represented something like this. If this one is better, it is just a meaningful representation for your code, right? Okay, yes, I can. Yes. I can show you a very simple example. For example, a node in this tree might say OP for operator and have another thing. Okay, I can use a structure from C like this. Let's say a node called operate or struct op node, which and this struct stores, represents a node which is an operator, and symbol is minus and that, and then symbol is another, let's say char, and then you have struct operand node pointer left and struct operand node pointer right, and then a semicolon. So you might say that there is a node of type operator, and then there is another node struct operand node which has this thing int value and just that. Yeah, right. And in your very simple AST abstract syntax tree, you could have an OP node which might point to a operand node to two operand nodes. One is left and one is right. OP operand node. Yeah, this is just a tree data structure, and this is very more meaningful than something like 1 plus 2. 1 plus 2 is just text, and to Neovim this does not mean anything. To Neovim this is just one character, then another character, and then another character. But if you pass that to a tree sitter, tree sitter will take this text and convert this into something meaningful like this. And we have an operator which is being called on two operands, left and right. So this is meaningful. Neovim can actually do something with this. And so this whole file goes to a tree sitter for the language in which this file is in. And so you can actually see the tree sitter. Inspect tree command, and I have the tree sitter on my right. So what this is just the thing that I showed you. Now this thing said this is the start of this is the root node, and this includes everything from the line, zeroth character, that is the first line's first character, till the last line's first character. So I'm assuming that there is nothing. Yeah. And the last line only has one character. And then return statement, this is just a meaningful representation for everything that you have written to the left in this file. And what this helps in is that this meaningful representation is very meaningful to Neovim, and Neovim knows that for something, let's say like this, something like this. Here I see that this thing is a string, right? This thing is a string, and this starts at line, this is at the 11th line, since it is zero indexed, so why, that is why it says 12, since it is zero indexed. 11th line's 52nd character is a string. So Neovim reads this and puts the string color onto 11th line's 52nd character. So that is cool, and this is 11th because zero indexed. And I'm not doing a very good job at explaining all of these things, but this is cool. This is cool. That is what tree sitter does. It gives me syntax highlighting. Very beautiful syntax highlighting is given to me by the tree sitter. And then we have LSP, nvim LSP config. LSP, okay. Now LSP is the same thing, but a lot more powerful. And there are a lot of things in LSP, since LSP is a protocol. And why is it supposed to be a protocol, and why couldn't it be a normal program which Neovim could just call? It couldn't be, because there might be different instances of your Neovim trying to edit, let's say, a file of this that belongs to the same language. Let's say you have two instances of Neovim open on at two different places in two different terminals, and in this window is not circle. In this window, you are editing a CPP file, one CPP, and in another window, you are editing another CPP file. And if your LSP were a program that would start whenever you enter a CPP file, and this LSP, if it were a separate instance for every CPP file that you create, therefore, in that case, you would have two LSPs running, and LSP is not a small thing. It is a whole server, essentially like a Minecraft server. And therefore, to have to not have a lot of instances of the same program running for the same thing at different places, we have an LSP. We have a protocol, language server protocol, and what this helps in is that you can have one instance of this LSP running when you enter a CPP file, and whenever you enter another CPP file, you would see is there an LSP running for CPP, and CPP's LSP is called clang D, clang daemon, which runs in the background. And here Neovim would check is the LSP for CPP already running, and if not, it would boot it up. And if it is running, then since this LSP is a protocol, there is a specific port in which on which this LSP is running, and Neovim can start to send the code that is inside this 2.cpp file, and LSP would see the code, parse the code internally. LSP itself has a lot of programs running inside. LSP consists of a parser which takes in the incoming source code, and this parser takes this source code and constructs an AST, abstract syntax tree. Why? Because this source code is just bare text which can be treated as .txt file. This is just bare text. LSP cannot do anything with this bare text. So LSP gets that. Okay. We have nvim, right? We have nvim, and using nvim, let's say I enter some file, some CPP file, and I have this extension, this plugin called nvim lsp config. And what this does is it sees the extension for the files that I am entering, and it sees that I am entering a CPP file, and it knows whenever I enter a CPP file, the LSP that is supposed to run for this extension is called clang D. So it tells Neovim, the plugin tells Neovim to check is clang D running, and if not, then start an instance of clang D and start communicating with it. And let's say I have clang D running now, and now Neovim takes this file, the contents of this file, and sends them to the LSP using LSP LSP docs. Let's say language server protocol. Since this is a protocol, therefore there are some very specific things, specification for communication between programs, and this is the whole protocol. You can also create your own LSP if you want. And there is this person, teach dev, uh, create your own LSP. I guess he has a video. LSP is explained, learn by building language server protocol, LSP from scratch in 2 hours. That is a very cool thing. You can watch that. Yeah, this is LSP. So now I have this LSP running clangd, and it gets some text file, which is some CPP code, and the LSP takes this text file and sends it to a program called parser. And what this parser does the whole job of this parser is to take in some text file and convert that text file into an abstract syntax tree and give it to the LSP. And now LSP has a meaningful representation for this source code. For this text, now LSP has a very meaningful representation to represent this source code. And now ClangD, this LSP, can actually do some things with the code, since now it is an abstract syntax tree, which is meaningful. And LSP, since LSPs are made for a specific languages, this LSP is for C, C++ language. So it knows what this AST is supposed to look like. So it goes through the whole syntax tree, the abstract syntax tree, and sees, does this syntax tree follow everything that is supposed to be in this language? Is there some error? Like for example, let's say hello.cpp, and inside here I write int this thing that you are seeing right now here. This is given to me by the LSP. So, and what this means is that when I entered this CPP file, this file with an extension of CPP, Neovim started communicating with ClangD, and which I can see LSP info. Here I see, why am I using this? Due to some reason, Lua language server is also running, maybe because I have in another buffer Lua files which I'm editing. So that is why Lua LSP is also running, but do not look at that. Look here, I have ClangD running, and ClangD I have installed using Homebrew, and the version of the language which we are using is 20, which is 20, right? C++ 20. And what this does is Neovim sends these three characters just, and that is all I have in my file. Neovim sends these three characters to the LSP, and LSP says that on the first line there is an error, and the error code for it is expected unqualified ID. And now Vim knows that there is an error on this line. Therefore, Neovim, using the things that it has, shows me this error. And now this is happening, everything is happening in real time. When I press space M, now Neovim sent these 5 characters to the Clang DLSP, and the Clang DLSP saw this thing and said, maybe this person is trying to write one of these things, one of these things. So the LSP, the Clang D LSP, tells Neovim to suggest all of these things to me. And Neovim is suggesting all of these things to me. Maybe these are the things I might be trying to write. And then when I do the whole thing, main, and now my LSP does not give me any error because there is no error. If I press I, my LSP is telling me, maybe this person is trying to write int, or maybe this person is trying to write if, or maybe this person is trying to write is heap until, or all of these things. So suggest them, maybe this is the thing that he is trying to write. And yeah, that is cool. Everything, all the errors that I see are by the LSP. And all of this thing, that is, whenever I enter a file with an extension of CPP, the ClangD LSP is supposed to run, and Neovim does not natively does it. So I have to use this plugin called nvim LSP config, which does all of these things for me, which sees whenever I enter a .cpp file, clangd is supposed to run. Whenever I enter a Rust file, Rust analyzer, the LSP for Rust is supposed to run, which I do not write Rust, so I can remove this. Whenever I enter a Python file, Python LSP is supposed to run. Whenever I'm writing some CMake file, which I do not write, I can remove this. CMake is supposed to run. This is LSP for TypeScript, and these are LSPs for Tailwind and CSS, which I can just remove because I'm not writing any of these things. I'm not even writing code for Python. I'm not even writing code for TS. But okay, I will have TypeScript and Python LSP. That is fine. Yeah, that is all of these things. And what am I doing here by requiring this here inside this thing, LSPs directory? I have the configurations for my LSPs. And what this does is it tells Neovim the command that should be run when I enter an LSP. Since I'm using a Mac, and in Mac, whenever you run clangd or something C related, there is a thing called Xcodes, and Xcode natively has Clang, GCC compiler and LSP, but I do not want to run that because that has C++17. I want to run C++20. I think C++20 is completely out. Latest C++ compiler version. C++23 standard is out, but the compiler support is for C++20. Regarding compiler, the latest stable version of GNU compiler connection, GCC 15, released in April 2025. This version offers full support for C++20 and extensive support, but not complete support for C++23. So I'm using clangd based on C++20 here, and yeah, these are just commands which you can use to modify your thing. And here I can even specify for which files do I want my LSP to run and what commands I want my LSP to run with. And this is funny. Okay, this is funny. When I was writing in TypeScript, I only had bun, and I didn't want to use node. I didn't want to use node, but whenever I enter a TypeScript or a JavaScript file, the LSP that runs, since it is interpreted, there is no binary for it. The LSP that runs, it requires me to have node, because the default command is to run it using node. So I can here say that whenever you run this LSP, use the bunx command with /bun. This is just the command to run this thing, TypeScript LSP language server, and these are the things that you have to provide. So now my TypeScript language server runs on bun, which is cool. And yeah, that is those are the things. And if someone has any questions, that this would be nice time to ask them. And it has not been long. It has been just 1 hour and 38 minutes. My streams is fine. It is not lagging. That is cool. So I did not do a very good job at explaining these things. I'm much better at solving questions than explaining, but that is why one of the reasons I'm doing all of this. So in this, I explained or went through my options, my key maps, and my plugins, presets, and LSPs. And that is about it. Apart from the fact the spelling for this thing is wrong. Yeah, that is what I went through, and it is pretty cool that Vim gives me this much support. I can do whatever I want with Vim, which is very cool. And I also had this thing throughout whatever I press comes here, which is very cool. And everything that you see here is on GitHub. Git status and git and everything. Why have I deleted? Everything you see here is on GitHub, which is cool. Assistant.nvim. Delete this thing. Yep. And git. The changes I have made is I have some untracked files. clangd.lua. Why do I have a clangd.lua file? I did some changes. So I created this file today. And this thing because I changed the name for this file and I modified my remaps, my options, my CPP boilerplate, my nvim lsp config file, and I deleted this file because I renamed it. So Vim is interpreting it as deleted, and I modified lazy plugin Lua. And now I can do git add everything, git commit message made changes, which is the best commit message, and then git push origin main. Now everything is on GitHub, github.com, nvim RC. My whole config file is here on GitHub, which is cool. And you can go if you want and see the whole file. Everything that I have shown in the stream is right here on GitHub, which is cool. And that was my configuration file for Neovim, and I did a terrible job at explaining everything. But I guess if you are new to this, then you at least know some stuff, know some terms like LSP, tree sitter, and you can go on YouTube or some other places where you can get a much better explanation. And for now, that would be it. Thank you for being here. Bye.